Hello everyone, this is Elena Vertugina and her project «Живые диалоги в живом английском», and today my special guest is Hugh Dellar.
Hello.
Yeah, usually other people start introducing Hugh Dellar by just enumerating the things that he has done during his life, and I can do that too, but first of all I would like to say that Hugh Dellar is the most approachable, the most amiable teacher and teacher trainer ever, and he does a lot for us for free, and we do appreciate it really much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and apart from that, he is the author of the online course Teaching Lexically, which
Yep.
I did. It was the first thing that I did with you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Then you also do a lot of other courses, training courses for teachers, basically aimed at like getting them acquainted with the lexical approach.
Yeah.
And,
Through our company, Lexical Lab.
Yeah, Lexical Lab, and he's written lots of textbooks, starting with innovations, then there was outcomes, then roadmaps for Pearson.
We did one of perspectives, a couple of roadmaps,
Yeah.
methodology book.
Methodology book, teaching lexically, yeah. So you've really done a lot to us. And now
Keeps me off the streets.
Yeah. And I'm really happy that you just managed to come to St. Pete's after all those
Me too.
days of lockdown. So
Yeah.
to see you in the flesh, to be talking just to you, it's a real pleasure.
Thank you.
I don't want this conversation to be an interview.
Okay.
I'm going to do something different.
Okay.
Well, I will say a couple of words how I got into all that. So I think I met Hugh Dellar in 2011 or 2012.
Yep.
I don't remember the exact date. And I did several courses with him and Andrew Walkley as well. And I've been teaching with the textbook outcomes quite a while. So I think I've come to understanding what the core of the lexical approach is. And now I would like to check with you whether I'm on the right track.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that you have quite influenced the way I teach. I can't say that you kind of changed the way I had been doing things before, but yeah, I was under a great influence, and I'm still is. And I graduated from St. Petersburg State University, and I did my CELTA as well.
Okay.
But it was after 20 years of teaching already. So I can't say that it did a lot of harm to me. It even taught me something. So I would like to be like giving you some, some thoughts of mine, and I would like you to reflect on them.
Okay.
How it chimes with you in general.
Okay.
So what has changed me since I got acquainted with lexical approach and Hugh Dellar and Andrew Walkley? I think I've developed noticing skills. Collocations, chunks, colligation, and context, and it's benefited and still benefit my students a lot.
Yeah, I think that's very much at the heart of what I'm talking about in a way, which is just teachers becoming a bit more sensitive about language, a bit more able to notice how language works, kind of just thinking a bit more beyond grammar structures and words, and looking at the way in which words interact with each other, the way in which words interact with grammar, and the way in which all of that interacts with context, and bringing that to the classroom, and bringing that to the examples and to your teacher talk, and helping the students to see things a bit more like that as well. So very much at the heart of things.
Oh, thank you.
It's always nice when someone says something that's kind of they think you might agree with, and you actually agree. Because I've had moments where people say, I've always done what you tell me to, and then they tell me something that's like, no, not that.
Okay.
So absolutely agree with this one.
It takes time to get used to it.
It does, and I
work
think
out how it works.
it's also recognising that it's an ongoing process, okay?
Yeah,
That you don't reach this point where you know everything about everything. It's just a kind of constant ongoing process of thinking about how language works. Whoops.
Right.
It's
okay.
Sorry, a bit noisy in here.
Working moment. The second thing I wanted to mention is that I have become much better at getting students to talk. As now I ask meaningful questions.
Yeah.
And I think asking right questions is great for remembering things and later retrieving them from our memory, as with their help logical skills are developed.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel the same. I think in the first maybe 8-9 years of my teaching, a lot of the questions I was asking students were either kind of display questions, where I was just trying to get them to show that they understood something, and I wasn't really engaging with them as people, or I was asking them sort of weird, kind of, I don't know, fluency-based, playful questions, which again, weren't really personally engaging. And I think also, as a younger teacher, I wish I'd learned more about how to actually just talk to the people I was in a room with. I think I spent the first 5 years not really having proper conversations with my students.
Yeah.
You know, just checking, can you use the present perfect? Can you say 3 trees? And not actually saying, you know, how are you? How's your life?
I was guilty of that.
I mean, I think lots of teachers go through that.
The next thing I can say about myself, that I have become much more patient with students. I don't jump in with answers, and amazingly, they will remember quite a lot themselves. And sometimes they even teach me, as now they are more into films and serials where natural speech is used.
Yeah, and I guess they've got more access to all of that these days as well.
And more time.
I think,
because we have to prepare for classes, which we have a lot.
And I think, in a way, that whole way of thinking about language in a broader sense, beyond just building up individual grammar structures, we're all forced into that kind of way of doing things because of the increased access to English that students have around them in the outside world. But I think the patience thing is also really important, because it comes from an understanding that you don't learn things just like that you learn things over time, through experience, through exposure. And once you kind of get that into your head, it's just like, well, I had a conversation in Krasnoyarsk where one of the teachers was getting frustrated because her elementary students keep saying things like, I'm meeting a friend tonight. And I was saying, well, that sounds almost correct to me. You know, they're like 75% of the way there. And this teacher was still seeing this as a failure. Whereas for me, I'm a kind of glass half full kind of person. And I think it's, you know, that's a step towards learning that thing. It's not a sign of no learning occurring. It's a sign of incomplete learning having yet occurred, but learning still occurring. And that just makes it easier for everyone. You know, you kind of less stress.
I think that very often, for the sake of the pace of the lesson, teachers interrupt their students very often. And
to kind of correct them and get in their faces, and it makes students a bit more anxious as well.
They need a little bit more time. They need to be sure that they won't be interrupted and corrected every second, and then they will start speaking. Oh, great that you agree with me on that.
There must be one I disagree with coming up.
Yeah, okay. I've reconsidered my attitude to levels of English. Sophisticated grammar and vocabulary doesn't make one fluent, and vice versa. In my opinion, people don't grade their language when it comes to natural talk. So you need to know enough to be able to get your message across and to understand other people's speech. So one more thing. So what I mean, if I know some useful expression, I will teach it to elementary students.
And I think in a way, it's also, if a student's trying to say something, they're ready to learn that thing. So if you've got an elementary student and they say, you do yoga, how long time you doing yoga? Well, that student's ready to learn, how long have you been doing that? And I think it's just getting it into your head that if that happens, you're just teaching how long have you been doing that. You're not teaching them everything about the present perfect continuous. It's like, I understand what you wanted to say, here it is. And I think that's a big kind of mind shift for lots of teachers, recognizing that you can do that if the need arises and if you think they're ready to express that meaning, and accepting that it's just a phrase, it's not everything about that particular grammar structure. Yeah, absolutely.
Like recently my students were happy learning, I shouldn't have drunk so much yesterday.
I can't imagine when anyone would need to use this sentence.
The adult students.
It's not your teenage class, no?
No. I know the limits. Another thing I would like to mention is I stopped setting strict limits for the language I expose my students to during the class. I've also almost blurred the boundaries between the textbook and authentic sources. It's easy to do with outcomes, as the language you put there is really natural and practical.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the nicest things I find my students often say to me is they've noticed things that I've taught them in the world around them. Yeah. And I think sometimes there's a word for this psychological phenomenon, and I've forgotten what it is. There's a thing about how until you've learned something or become aware of something, you don't notice its existence. Yeah. And then suddenly, when someone says, "Oh, there's this thing," it's like you start seeing it everywhere. Yeah.
The same with women. We buy a bag, we start seeing it.
The bag, everyone else has it. Or yeah, it's the same walking around a city.
Yeah.
Like if you suddenly notice some kind of weird architectural feature, and you're like, "I've never noticed those before." Oh, there's another one, and you've probably walked down that road 100 times, but you haven't noticed it. And so for me, I think one of the best things students can feel about what they're learning in the classroom is they go outside of the classroom and it's like, oh, there's that thing. And I don't think that used to happen when I was a younger teacher, because I was just teaching random single words and bits of grammar, and students were just like, well, how do I experience and notice this in the outside world?
I always tell my students that the more you get into the textbook, outcomes, the more magic will happen with the outside. So
I couldn't comment.
Yeah, no, but that's really true.
Thank you.
That's really true. One more thing I wanted to mention is that the way I teach grammar has become much more lexical. And I teach much more grammar in disguise. We tell whole stories about sentences. For example, when discussing "I should have known better," there can arise phrases like "now, in or with hindsight," or "I clearly see," "I lacked experience," "I regret having done that," "but for my carelessness," and so many other things.
You're kind of looking at the language around the grammaticalized examples that you think of, and I think that's really important. And I think it kind of breaks that tendency we sometimes have to only treat structures in isolation. It's thinking about, well, if you're going to say something like "I should have known better," what's the context, what's the story, what else might you see, And it might be things like, "Oh, well, looking back, I can see it was a stupid thing to do, I should have known better, but hey, I was young, I was inexperienced." And it is just that kind of embedding the examples in a context or a story where you can also teach the connected language, and that can connect to the students' lives and make the grammar a bit more meaningful and pertinent, maybe.
I like, thinking of that song by Elvis Presley. "You walk like an angel, talk like it, so it looks like some lexis, walks like some lexis." But very soon you will learn that that's grammar in disguise.
Okay, I'll see where you're going with this.
And I wanted also to discuss one very important thing for me, which is pronunciation. First, I would like to tell you my take on that.
This is the one we disagree on.
Go on. We don't anymore.
No? Okay, go on.
Because in your textbooks, you give a lot of patterns, and you work with sounds, and you work with intonation and stress, and the pace in the sentence, and all that stuff. And this is pretty the same what I believe in. But I also think that it is possible to teach students the exact sounds of the language, and then they will be able to understand a fast speech better. I also teach, those interconnections between words, like links. Different stuff connected with a disappearance of the sound division and assimilation. And this is what we did yesterday. So I'm just going from sounds to words.
Simple and starter.
To connected speech, to fluent speech, and then back. And it really helps students. When it comes to them appearing somewhere outside the classroom, listening to fluent speech, they really find it helpful.
In which case,
I'm not speaking about the differences between class and class.
So I guess for me, I've changed a lot the way I think about pronunciation, and partly it's to do with just thinking a lot more about the diversity of accents within fluent using communities. And I live in London, and so you hear every possible accent every day, all the time coming at you. And I've sort of come to the feeling that anyone who listens to your English and judges you first and foremost by your accent is probably a bit of an idiot.
A first impression you can make only once. But
yeah. But you know, listen to the person rather than the accent first. But I think the real issue for students is that the way we've traditionally taught connected speech is, I think, too clean and too tidy. And so when I was starting out and I did my CELTA and Delta, I was doing kind of tidy pronunciation. So I was doing, you know, how long have you been doing that? And then you start realising that actually outside of class, what students are often hearing is things like, how long have you been doing that? And you know, that they almost can't hear it because it's so compressed and crunched. And then I read the work of Richard Caldwell, who I think anyone who's interested in listening and pronunciation should read. And that just kind of like destroyed any ideas I had about, you know, tidy connected speech. And he talks about these things like consonant death, you know, the hiss effect. So when we had that thing yesterday, is everyone having a starter? What often happens in normal speech is just, is everyone? And he calls that the hiss effect, And when I read it, I was like, that happens so often, that happens all the time.
So we do not disagree.
In which case we don't disagree.
And another case is just students tend to read very often to misread English words, like saying cucumber instead of cucumber. As oxygen instead of oxygen. And this is the issue with the English spelling. And that's when the pronunciation just comes into play.
You'll be pleased to hear my son is working on a project to standardise English spelling. My 8-year-old son has decided that he hates English spelling so much he's going to standardise it. He's got this notebook where he's making this, you know, it's like, okay, good luck, mate.
And I have two last questions. One, I promised to ask to my students. You know, after we did that interview last year, and they watched it, and when I asked them, what kind of questions do you have now? They said, well, your previous students covered almost everything. So maybe you ask him whether he likes cats or dogs.
Me, cat person.
Cat person.
Cat person, I hate dogs.
Eula, this is for you,
Cat person. I've got 3 cats at home. I've always had cats.
Oh, really?
I love
I've
cats.
Got 2.
Have you?
Yeah.
I'm not a dog person.
Huge.
No, and dog owners as well. Because like, if you're in London, you get the aggressive dogs, like the drug dealer boys' dogs that kind of get in your face. You also get just like the dogs that come running up and eat your picnic when you're in the park, and then the owners come up and say, oh, he doesn't usually do that. It's like, this doesn't make me feel better knowing this. And just streets full of dog shit and dogs trying to lick your face. Dogs barking in the next door's garden. Cats.
I can't
Cats,
quite agree
infinitely
with you,
superior creatures.
I see what you...
And less needy. You know, dogs are like, me. Cats are just, you know, do my own thing.
And the last question, I traditionally finish our talks with asking you something connected with my students' project that I do, FACES. Festival of Art and Culture for English-loving students. But first of all, I want to say that last year we talked, and we chose the topic that was called health. It was going to be our 13th festival. And so you know what happened?
COVID.
Yes.
Well done. It's your fault.
We were talking in October, I think. And pretty soon this stuff happened. So unfortunately, we were not able to conduct the festival.
Maybe we should talk about peace this year.
This year we've chosen the topic to play it safe, home. Which is also can be quite a wide one.
Yeah.
So what first comes to mind when you hear the word
North London?
North London.
Yeah, that's just North London. Just London and North London. Much as I love travelling and much as I love being in other places, as soon as I'm back in London and I'm sitting on the tube and I hear people talking and I hear the accent and I hear the way that people interact with each other, it just feels like a kind of, you know, like settling into an old coat that you feel comfortable in. Just, very much London's home for me.
Great. You know, it has been a really great talk.
Thank you.
Of course, I haven't discussed everything that I wanted, but I don't want to hold you because I know how popular you are. So this was Hugh Dellar and Elena Vertugina. Thank you guys for being with us very much, and thank you, Hugh, for being so kind and so helpful to all of us.
Thank you.
That's it. Bye-bye.
Sorry.